Mark Hill from Greenleaf. So I've been thinking about the possibilities if the People's Vote campaign is still successful as a result of the dislocation of the House of Commons. If we ended up with a second referendum, what would be the likely balance of forces? Well, clearly the European movement and its various satellite organisations, their huge City of London funding, their huge institutional support, media support, the backing of all the major political parties, that would tend to give them a significant institutional advantage. However, 2016 showed that the nobodies can still win. And my goodness, weren't we nobodies in 2016? Nobody really thought that it was conceivable that Leave would win, that fear and dislike of radical change would guide people to vote in favour of the status quo, in favour of Remain. One thing on our side which would definitely be different is that all the various Leave groups would be a lot better organised, a lot better funded and in better communication than they were in 2016. We would end up with a better coordinated, probably broader, more sectorially sensitive campaign than we had in 2016, when it was essentially run by various renegades from the Conservative Party plus others. And the reason is we've been forced to continue campaigning, to at least a modest extent, just to defend our position since 2016. And after 2.5, nearly 3 years now of this soft level campaigning, I think many of us, if we were given the chance to fight a second referendum, we would relish the opportunity to truly defeat our Europhile opponents and make sure they realised that the People's Vote had genuinely dismissed the project which they have got so cultishly adhered to, so cultishly supportive of. So I just thought I'd run through some of the many groups that are opposed to the European Union, so you can begin to realise their diversity and the sort of way that we're likely to campaign if we are forced to undergo this yet again in 2019, 2020. Some of the people who were most involved with the Leave campaign have remained active in politics and have either their own groups or they're part of other groups that they were part of which would remain active in campaigning against the EU. So Gislea, Stuart, for example, the Labour MP that chaired the Vote Leave campaign, is the director of the Change Britain campaign, which was one of the main ones that came out of the Vote Leave campaign. There are bodies such as the Labour Leave campaign, which was a critical element of Vote Leave. It didn't work within Vote Leave, although the chair, John Mills, was for a while also chair of the Vote Leave campaign. It organised separately and had a huge effect on the strength of the centre-left vote, which balanced off pretty well against the EU. It was about 60-40 in favour of Remain, Labour's supporter base. The fact that we got 40% was probably what swung the referendum for us. They're still going, and they've still got many hundreds of thousands of supporters and contacts on their lists. We have the Conservatives that have gone back to work for organisations like the Taxpayers Alliance. But we also have new groups. So one which I'd point out is Standup for Brexit, which has got supporters such as Andrea Jenkins, the MP for Morley, which is near where I work from. And I imagine that Stand Up for Brexit will be a key part of any future Vote Leave campaign. We've got strong support from bodies like trade unions against the European Union. which is led by the firefighters trade unionist Paul Embry, but he's not the only one. There are other trade unionists involved. There are some bodies which are in the nature of ginger groups. So one of them is Brendan Chilton's collaboration with ex-Tory Minister Peter Lilly, Global Britain, which is arguing for a specifically globalist, internationalist, globally minded is probably a better word, internationalist view of the way that we should leave the European Union. The largest membership organisation is probably Leave Means Leave, which has ended up with a lot of the supporter base of UKIP and Leave.eu. As a campaign, they coordinate with Richard Tice, Jonathan Longworth, ex of the British Chambers of Commerce, and Nigel Farage. They organise large rallies across the country. We've got outright conservative groups such as the Bruges Group, which has been running for decades now, although it is not entirely conservative. Its last meeting had members of about 5 different political parties, including UKIP and the Unionists there, as well as Labour people who are frequently invited onto its platforms. Then there is Better Off Out, the campaign run by the Freedom Association, again a very long-standing Tory campaign. There is another group within the Labour Party called Labour Future, again run by Brendan Chilton, also of Labour Leave. We have bodies that are research and website-based campaigns such as Briefings for Brexit, which is legal stuff. We have the Brexit Central, which is run by a certain Jonathan Isby. We have the Brexit Facts for EU, which is again specifically a briefing organisation. We have some groups which are specifically grassroots and non-partisan, such as Leavers of Britain, which was organised by Lucy Harris from November or so last year, October, November last year, and she has been encouraging local groups of people who are sort of shy leavers to meet up with each other in order to realise that they are not alone. Other specifically left-wing organisations include the Full Brexit, which is run by a guy called Lee Jones, and this is left Lexit, probably to the left of the Labour Party leadership, although there are some Labour Party people within it. It's probably more left-wing than that, and that is at the moment doing a speaking tour with a certain Kostas Lapavitsas, how do you say the second name? Anyway, a ex-Greek left MP who was serving at the same time as Varoufakis and the terrible overriding of the Greek democratic mandate for a better deal from the European Union Central Bank. That's doing a speaking tour and has a good website, and also it has other left-wing groups actually organised on its podium. We have other odds and ends like the young Eurosceptics. We have lots of interest groups such as Students for Brexit, Veterans, City, Fishermen, Farmers, Scots, Entrepreneurs, Lawyers, and of course Greens. There are some long-standing campaigns which are non-partisan, such as Get Britain Out, the campaign against Euro-federalism, again that's more left-wing, and the campaign for an independent Britain. And then finally we have the support of a whole variety of mostly rather tiny political parties. The obvious one that people know about is the UK Independence Party, which is still very powerful, has quite a strong web presence and a reasonable percentage in the opinion polls. But has done a controversial thing in arranging its affairs with Tommy Robinson, and as a result it has split. In fact, the MEPs that used to represent it in the European Parliament are now representing about 5 political parties, I believe, within the European Parliament. Other parties that support Brexit include the Democratic Unionist Party, which of course has parliamentary representation, unlike all of the others, and then smaller parties such as the Libertarian Party, the Social Democratic Party, which is David Owen's mob, the Time Party, which is led by a man called Robert Kimball, the Liberal Party, which is the residue of the Liberal the true Liberals that refuse to join the Liberal Democrats, led by Councillor Steve Radford from Merseyside, and of course then the one that is growing and will probably stand in elections if there is an extension to Article 50, the Brexit Party, led by Nigel Farage. So my point is, there are a lot of different bodies there, and they're all busy organising now to support the campaign to leave on the 29th of March. And while each of us are individually relatively small outfits, we haven't got the backing of a single major political party. Not even really the Conservatives, in case people misunderstand the situation. We are a lot better organised than we were in 2016. In 2016 we won by 4%. So, with a superior organisation, communication and will, I think a second referendum would probably be lost even before it was called.